Hello.
Hello.
1 minute. I'm just adjusting the settings because Farouk is outside Egypt and he cannot enter. Okay, I'm starting. Fine. Now, I'm going to continue from where I stopped. We started last week talking about, 1 minute, yeah. We talked about the structures that are in the respiratory system. I'm going to go over them quickly. Now, how is the studying for the term exam? Is everything good? Any questions? Okay, I'm going to open a noteboard. Give me a second. Now, if anyone is outside Egypt, Farouk is complaining that he cannot enter because he's outside Egypt. I don't know how to adjust the settings now. Okay, can you all see my screen? Is my screen shared?
Yes.
Okay. Fine. Now, last time we talked about the different structures. We mainly talked about the anatomy of the respiratory system. And that part was very easy because this lesson is divided into two parts. First part is the anatomy. And the second part, we will talk about some diseases and how they affect the functions of the respiratory system. It's actually a very easy lesson. We started off by saying that we have the trachea, and it is divided into the bronchi, which are divided into smaller branches, the narrower bronchioles. And then what do they end with, Yasin? What are these?
The alveoli.
The alveoli, okay? Something very basic, and we took it before. And then we studied the different tissues that are found in the respiratory system. We said in the trachea, what do we have here? What are these? Yasin?
Cartilage.
Yes, cartilage in the form of C-shaped rings, incomplete C-shaped rings. And then we have bronchi. The bronchi also contain cartilage. These are the bronchi. Now, this question is for you, Yasin, because you were here last time. The narrower bronchioles, do they have C-shaped rings?
No, they don't.
They don't. Very good. We will study a few tissues that are found in the gas exchange system, which include the ciliated epithelium and the smooth muscles and the cartilage and the elastic fibers. Now, to cut a long story short and not get confused, because they keep on asking you, the bronchioles, they have two things missing from these tissues. Number one, they have no cartilage. So the smaller bronchioles They are very narrow and they have no cartilage. That's why they can easily collapse and they can easily get blocked. And number two, also the bronchioles have no goblet cells. No goblet cells. Again, for the same reason, because what do the goblet cells produce? Goblet cells produce what?
Mucus.
Mucus. And if the bronchioles that are very narrow are filled with mucus, what will happen to the bronchioles? They will become
Blocked.
blocked. Okay? And then we stopped, I think, at the bronchioles, and then we moved on to the bronchi, alveoli. And then we looked at many histological pictures because this lesson is full of pictures. These pictures are the pictures of these structures or tissues under the microscope. And we have to be able to identify the difference between the trachea and the bronchi and the bronchioles, etc., etc. Now, again, because some of you missed it last class, let's look at the pictures. This is the PowerPoint right here. Fine. So I'm going to move quickly because we mentioned all this last class. We started off by saying that as a multicellular organism, we need a respiratory system because we have a small surface area to volume ratio or a large surface area to volume ratio. We took this part in the lesson, transport in mammals.
Large.
You have a small or a large surface area to volume ratio, Yassine.
Small.
Yes, don't get confused. If you have a unicellular organism, like this organism that you have in front of you, this organism has a very large surface area to volume ratio. In other words, its surface area is very large compared to its volume. Okay? The volume here is the distance between the center of the unicellular organism to its external environment. The distance is very short. So this organism can survive with diffusion. It can exchange gases, it can exchange materials, all with diffusion. But if you are a multicellular organism, like an elephant, this elephant has a very large surface area and a very large volume. They're both large. But which is much larger compared to the other? The surface area or the volume? Can you tell me, Mariam?
The volume.
The volume. So multicellular organisms like us, like the elephants, they have a small surface area compared to the volume. This is important. That is why we cannot exchange gases simply by diffusion. We cannot exchange nutrients simply by diffusion. We need a circulatory system and we need a respiratory system. Okay, so if they ask you a simple question of why do we need a respiratory system? Because we are multicellular organisms, we have a small surface area to volume ratio. This is the same case for any multicellular organism. So that is why we need a respiratory system and we need circulatory system because we cannot exchange, we cannot live with diffusion alone. Clear? I hope this objective is clear. And then we talked about the anatomy. This anatomy part was very, very easy. And we talked about the different tissues. The different tissues, again, ciliated epithelium, smooth muscles, cartilage, and elastic fibers. And why do I tell you that this lesson is easy? Because you heard about those tissues before. The ciliated epithelium, quickly, this is a single layer of epithelial cells. And once they are described as being ciliated, then what do they have?
Cilia.
They have cilia, okay? And you know this from before. And what's the function of cilia?
Moves the mucus away from the lungs.
Very good. Away from the lungs to the back of the throat so that you swallow it or you spit it. It's your choice. If you swallow it, the microorganisms will be dead due to the presence of the acids in the stomach. And in between the cilia, now this is a very nice picture showing you the cilia. And for your information, the cilia, they move in one direction, away from the lungs, upwards towards the back of the mouth in order to swallow the mucus, and it goes to the acids in the stomach. Now, in between the cilia, we have cells that release mucus. What is the name of those cells? These cells?
Goblet cells.
Goblet cells. Okay, this is for everyone. I want everyone to participate. These pictures that you will see in your notes are very important because you will get a slide in paper 3. 90% of the time is a plant slide, but it can be a respiratory slide or a blood vessel. So it's very easy to identify because you easily see those microscopic hairs and you easily see the goblet cells and you can easily identify that it is cilia. Another picture here of the ciliated epithelium. This is the layer of epithelial cells, and here you have the cilia, very obvious, okay? But this is a light microscope of very high magnification. We don't usually have that. Now, the second tissue is smooth muscles. Like any muscle, it will relax and dilate, and muscles relax and constrict or dilate to control the what? The diameter of the respiratory tract, just like the smooth muscles in the blood vessels. Any muscle will constrict and will dilate, will relax and contract to control the diameter. So the moment you are asked about the function of any smooth muscle in any part of the body, it's a muscle, so it will contract and relax, controlling the diameter, controlling the flow of air. Smooth muscles, again, you should know how they look like under the microscope because they are spindle in shaped with a central nucleus and no fibers. That's why they look smooth and they are called smooth. And this is how a smooth muscle looks like under the microscope. Another histology picture. Now the cartilage. Cartilage is found in a lot of places around the body. It's found in the trachea and the bronchi only. It is not found around bronchioles. They try to confuse you in paper 1. Now, in the trachea and the bronchi, the cartilage is different. How is it different? In the trachea, the cartilage is in the form of incomplete C-shaped rings. But in the bronchi, who was present last time? Can you tell me what is the difference between the trachea, between the cartilage and the bronchi, Yasin? Are they incomplete C-shaped rings or they are separate cartilage pieces?
They are separate.
Yes. So the cartilage in the trachea, they are incomplete C-shaped rings. And the bronchi, they are separate cartilage pieces or plates or hoops. Like this is a histological picture of a cross-section through the trachea. How did I know that it's a trachea?
There's an
What is very
incomplete
obvious?
C-shape.
Yes, the cartilage is very obvious. Maybe you're not familiar with it now, but you will be familiar with it when you see a lot of pictures. The cartilage is very obvious. It is an incomplete C-shaped ring. Now the functions of the cartilage: to provide support, to provide flexibility, to make the trachea flex or move a little bit while breathing, to make it always open so that it does not collapse when there are pressure changes. The same reasons that we studied in the O level. All this is nearly O level. Can someone tell me what is this muscle tube behind the trachea?
Smooth muscle.
Yes, this is the esophagus that takes the food. This is your neck, by the way. The first tube is the windpipe or the trachea. Serene, you're with us, yes?
Yes.
Okay, participate, please. And the second tube is the esophagus for the food. Serene, you have any questions? Did you watch the first video because you were not there in the first session?
Yes, I watched it.
Okay, again, this is the cartilage because this is the trachea because the cartilage is very obvious. And if you want to look at more pictures, you can Google, you can write trachea histology. You will receive or you will see so many specimens. Get used to it because you can receive anything in paper 3. Again, another picture showing you the trachea clearly, an incomplete C-shaped ring that keeps the respiratory system always open, support, flexing, etc. Now, the different tissues in the trachea. Now, this is the trachea. The first layer is always the respiratory epithelium. If you zoom in, you will see the microscopic villi. And then you have here smooth muscles. The smooth muscles always come next. Here you have blood vessels, as you can see. You have scattered connective tissue. And then you have the cartilage. This is the cartilage. This cartilage, it is described in biology as having a glassy appearance. And the cartilage is produced by cells called chondrocytes. I don't think they will ask you about chondrocytes, but in case you read it somewhere. Okay, these are the chondrocytes. This is a zoom in. The cartilage looks like this. No blood vessels. I'm sure you noticed that you don't have any blood vessels and no nerves. Okay, and this is a drawing of the cartilage tissue. Again, lots and lots of pictures. This is the trachea. The incomplete C-shaped ring is very obvious. And you have the esophagus here, right there. Okay. Now zooming into the cartilage tissue, it looks like these. These all are the chondrocytes and the elastic fibers are here. Okay. Now these are the chondrocytes, glassy. It has a glassy appearance. This is how it is described in biology. No blood vessels. If you notice, no blood vessels, no nerve endings. And this is a drawing of the cartilage. Just be familiar with the picture and how it looks like. Now, elastic fibers are also found all along the respiratory system, especially around the alveoli, and you will understand why in a minute. Now, elastic fibers, we also studied elastic fibers in the lesson circulation. What do they provide? What are the keywords that we use when we are asked about elastic fibers or elastic tissue? Serene, what does elastic fibers provide for the blood vessel? You should be studying blood vessels, and they are surrounded by
It
elastic
allows
fibers.
it to surge.
Yes, you are correct. To surge, we use this in circulation so that it withstands the high pressure. Now, this is a circulation, but there are some words that we always use with elastic fibers. It provides elasticity, simply elasticity. It allows the tissue to stretch and recoil. Okay, now, if you look at this picture, hopefully this will make things easier. This is the alveoli. All the alveoli are surrounded by elastic fibers, as you can see. All these are elastic fibers. Now, these elastic fibers, they provide alveoli with elasticity, as we just said. And what does this mean? If we want to explain more, it allows the alveoli to stretch and recoil. Now, I want you to think with me. When will the alveoli stretch? During inhalation or exhalation? During inspiration or expiration? When you inhale, your alveoli will stretch or recoil. Recoil means to squeeze out. So during inspiration or inhalation, the alveoli will stretch or recoil.
It will stretch in inspiration.
Very good. It will stretch. Now, these elastic fibers, they do something very important. They prevent overstretching. If you notice, when you breathe in, there is a limit where you will stop. Because if you keep on breathing in and in and in, what will happen to the alveoli?
Explode.
Exactly. They will overstretch and they will explode. Now, what prevents the overstretching? The elastic fibers. Very good. Now, when the alveoli are filled with air, how does this air go out? Who will squeeze the air out?
Elastic fibers.
Correct. Also the elastic fibers. Here, the elastic fibers will recoil in order to squeeze the air out of the alveoli, just like a balloon. So the elastic fibers are very important, especially in the alveoli, because they provide alveoli with elasticity and they help alveoli stretch during inhalation and preventing overstretching, and they allow the alveoli to recoil during exhalation to expel out the air. This is in normal situations if you have a healthy respiratory system and healthy elastic fibers. Now, can you imagine what will happen if those elastic fibers are damaged? Where's the picture? Now, these elastic fibers, what if they're damaged? What will happen? Now, it's very simple. The opposite will happen. Will there be any elasticity?
No.
No, Maryam, will the alveoli, when you breathe in and there is no elastic fibers to prevent the overstretching, you keep on breathing in and in and in and in, what will happen to the alveoli?
Burst.
Exactly, they will burst because you will keep on breathing in and they will overstretch and the air will remain trapped inside the alveoli and they will not recoil to expel out the air. The alveoli will overstretch and they will burst. And this is what happens in diseases like the chronic obstructive pulmonary diseases that we will talk in a minute. okay, that we will talk about in a minute. So let's not jump. We are talking about elastic fibers. Elastic fibers are found all along the respiratory tract, especially around the alveoli, and they are often asked about. They provide elasticity. They allow stretching and recoiling, stretching during inhalation, but they prevent overstretching. This is a very important keyword. You will find it a lot in the mark scheme. They prevent overstretch so it doesn't burst. And when you exhale, they recoil, they squeeze out the air from the alveoli. Because if this does not happen, the air will become trapped and it will burst. And this is something that we want to avoid. So during inhalation, it allows alveoli to stretch, to expand, but without bursting. It prevents overstretching. This is copy-pasted from the mark scheme, okay? And during exhalation, they allow the alveoli to recoil, or to deflate. You don't have to write all that. You can write one of them because this means or. So it allows the alveoli to recoil or to deflate to help expel or force out the air. Just 2 sentences, but they're very common and very important. So we talked about the tissues that are found in the respiratory tract. Ciliated epithelium. Be familiar with the structure and the function. So let's go back quickly, very easy. Ciliated epithelium, the structure, this is how it looks like. It has a basement membrane, ciliated cells, cilia to sweep away the mucus and the dust and the particles away from the lungs towards the throat. So you swallow it, so it goes to the stomach. So the microorganisms are destroyed by the acids. And in between you have goblet cells. Goblet cells produce mucus to trap the dust and the particles, etc., etc. Okay? Ciliated epithelium is found all along the respiratory tract, but it is not found in the what? Cilia. Where is cilia not found? Let's look at the anatomy.
Bronchioles.
Excuse me?
Bronchioles.
No, they're found in the bronchioles. They're not found where? In the
Alveoli.
alveoli. Yes. Okay. So this is, imagine with me, this is your trachea, this is your bronchi, these are your bronchioles. You do have cilia along your trachea, actually they're very dense, and you have cilia along your bronchi, and less dense cilia in your bronchioles, but you don't have cilia in the alveoli. The alveoli is made up of only a flattened layer of squamous epithelial cells with no cilia, okay? So the trachea has all the tissues that we talked about. The trachea contains ciliated epithelium. It contains incomplete C-shaped rings. It contains smooth muscles to control the diameter and the airflow. And it contains elastic fibers. Okay? Bronchi also contains all the tissues. Bronchioles have 2 things missing. What is missing from the bronchioles? Because they're very narrow.
Cartilage and the
Yes,
goblet.
no
Goblet
cartilage and no goblet cells. Please don't forget that because we don't want to do mistakes in paper 1. Alveoli, if you come to study the alveoli, draw it so you don't forget. The alveoli looks like a balloon. Okay, and we will study the alveoli in detail. It's made up of a single layer of endothelial cells or squamous epithelial cells, no cilia. They are surrounded by so many capillaries and lots of what are these X's that are drawing? Elastic fibers so that they can stretch and recoil. We understood their importance. And capillaries, of course, because these capillaries, they provide the CO2 so that it is exhaled out and takes the oxygen. Okay? Now let's go back one by one. We stopped at the alveoli. We said the alveoli, they have lots of elastic fibers. I hope you understand why they are important. Okay. Now, and also the alveoli are surrounded by many capillaries. I just said why these capillaries are important. Why are they important? What do the capillaries provide?
Oxygen.
No, you're wrong, Mariam. They provide the CO2.
Deoxygenated blood.
Yes. So the capillaries provide the deoxygenated blood because this deoxygenated blood will give out the CO2. The CO2 will be exhaled, and these capillaries will take the oxygen from the alveoli. And even though this is a very easy question that is out of 4 marks, you will find it so many times in paper 2, discuss the gas exchange at the alveoli or the steps of the gas exchange. And the keywords are very easy. Diffusion, the word diffusion. You will mention that in the alveoli, you have a high concentration of which gas, oxygen or carbon dioxide?
Oxygen.
Oxygen. And the oxygen will diffuse down a concentration gradient by simple diffusion. This is going to give you only 2 marks. It's going to diffuse down a concentration gradient from the alveoli into the surrounding capillaries, and the capillaries will take it away. And from the capillaries, which gas will diffuse out?
Carbon dioxide.
Yes, very good. Again, down a concentration gradient, it will diffuse out so that it is exhaled. And the reason why capillaries are extensive is that they maintain a concentration gradient. This is a very important sentence. Maintain a high concentration gradient means that always the capillaries will take the oxygen away to give it to the bodies for aerobic respiration and provide the alveoli with CO2. So there is a high difference in concentration. I always have high oxygen in the alveoli and little oxygen in the capillaries. And I always have lots of CO2 in the capillaries and little CO2 in the alveoli. Why little CO2 in the alveoli? Because it is exhaled. Okay, so capillaries are very important to maintain a concentration gradient. Maintain means to keep. Let's take it word by word. Concentration gradient, gradient means difference. I have lots of oxygen inside and less oxygen outside. Why I have less oxygen outside? Because the capillaries are taking it away. It's giving it to the tissues. So when I always have lots of oxygen inside the alveoli, high oxygen inside the alveoli and less oxygen outside the alveoli, in this way, I will maintain a concentration gradient and oxygen will keep on diffusing from the alveoli to the outside, from the alveoli to the outside. Do you understand what this sentence means? And the same case for CO2. The CO2 will diffuse from the capillaries into the alveoli and it is exhaled. It is always exhaled out, out, out. And this is also going to maintain a concentration gradient. Did I say anything new? Didn't we mention all this last year? Any questions? Any questions?
No.
Okay, now the structure of the alveolus, they love the alveoli. The alveoli is made of a single layer of squamous epithelial cells here. Single layer of 1 cell thick squamous epithelium. It looks exactly like this. It's not ciliated. It's not ciliated. I'm making this clear. And then you have many capillaries. These capillaries, they maintain a concentration gradient just like we said. And they are surrounded by many, many, many elastic fibers so that they provide elasticity, so that they stretch during inhalation and they recoil during exhalation. And you can explain when we inhale, they will prevent overstretching, and when they recoil, they will squeeze the air out so that the air does not get trapped, so that it doesn't burst, etc., etc. You can write a lot of things in this question, and this question is nice and easy. Something else that is new to you is that we have 2 types of cells in the alveoli. Let me show you a picture. Yes, this nice picture. This is an alveoli, by the way. Here is an alveoli. It's made up of 2 types of alveolar cells. You have type 1 alveolar cells or type 1 pneumocyte, and type 2 alveolar cells or type 2 pneumocytes. Now let's look at the difference between both and the function of each. The type 1 pneumocyte is this one. This is the type 1 pneumocyte or the type 1 alveolar cell. This is a very thin cell, very, very thin cell, squamous endothelial cell. Hello, can you hear me? Okay, very thin endothelial cell, and it is very thin so that it facilitates diffusion. And 95% of the alveoli is made up from the type 1 pneumocyte or the thin squamous endothelial cell. Nice? Any questions? Its function is for gas exchange. Anything hard about what I said? Hello? Girls?
No.
Yassine? Okay. Now there's another cell, this big, large cuboidal cell that you can see here. It's not a white blood cell. A lot of students get confused. This is the type 2 pneumocyte or the type 2 alveolar cell. And this has another function. It produces a fluid called the surfactant. It's called the pulmonary surfactant. Okay? It produces a fluid. This fluid here, it fills the inner lining of the alveoli. Now, can you guess what is the function of this fluid? What is the function of any fluid anyway?
It makes the oxygen and carbon dioxide able to diffuse.
Yes, you are correct. This is one of its functions. It helps the gases to dissolve because it's a gas. We want it to dissolve. So, of course, it helps in diffusion. Something else that is very important. This pulmonary surfactant reduces surface tension. This is a keyword. It reduces surface tension. It reduces the cohesion forces between the water molecules. Now let me get a board. Okay, I'm going to draw an alveoli. Fine, here. Now this alveoli is very small, by the way. It's not big. You see it big here in the picture, but it's very small. Now I have water molecules here and water molecules here. We studied water and its properties, and we said that the water molecules attract each other. When similar molecules attract each other, these are called forces of cohesion. If this alveoli is very small and the water molecules attract each other, then the alveoli can collapse. This is going to create surface tension. These molecules will attract each other and the alveoli will collapse. Now, this is something that we want to prevent. We don't want the surface tension to increase. We don't want the water molecules to attract each other. We don't want the alveoli to collapse. So one of the main functions of the pulmonary surfactant is to reduce the surface tension within the alveoli and to reduce the forces of cohesion between the water molecules, therefore preventing what? Collapse of the alveoli. This is one of the main functions of the pulmonary surfactant that is produced by the type 2 pneumocytes or the type 2 alveolar cells. It prevents collapse. This is a keyword. You have to write it. Prevents collapse. But you don't just say that and go home. You have to explain. It reduces surface tension. It reduces cohesion between the water molecules. It prevents the alveoli, sometimes you can write it like that. It prevents the alveoli from sticking together. Okay. It also prevents the alveoli, the walls, to stick together, the external walls. So it prevents also adhesion between the alveolar walls. And like Sirine said, one of the other functions is that it helps the gases to dissolve in this fluid, and therefore it will also help in diffusion and gas exchange. Let's look at the list of functions of this pulmonary surfactant. They love this question. Let's read it together. It reduces surface tension, okay? And we want to understand what is surface tension. Here, it reduces cohesion in water. See, this is or. You can write this or that. This is from the mark scheme. It reduces cohesion in water, preventing them from sticking together, therefore preventing their collapse. This number one sentence is very important. It prevents adhesion of the alveolar walls. It prevents the walls of the alveoli from sticking to each other because they're very close to each other. And the gases can dissolve. This is what Sirine said, in the surfactant and hence help in diffusion. And also, like any fluid, it reduces friction between the moving gas particles. Okay, so this is something new that you did not study about the alveoli, the structure of the alveoli. The alveoli is made up of a layer of endothelial cells, flat, cuboidal, squamous epithelium. They like this term. It's not ciliated. We don't have goblet cells here. We don't have cilia here. We don't have cartilage here. They're just air-filled balloons. Okay? They are surrounded by many capillaries. Why? What's the keyword? These capillaries, what do they provide? To maintain what? Hello? Wake up with me.
Concentration
capillaries-
gradient.
Yes, they maintain concentration gradient. Believe me, just give them what they want so that they give you the grade. Capillaries maintain concentration gradient. In other words, they take the oxygen away and they provide CO2. So I always have high concentration of oxygen inside and low concentration of oxygen outside. So the oxygen will diffuse down a concentration gradient very quickly. And the same case with CO2. I have lots of CO2 in the capillaries and little CO2 here inside. So the CO2 will move down a concentration gradient so that it is exhaled, so that they can operate efficiently. Their function is gas exchange. Also, they are surrounded by many elastic fibers. And what does this provide, Serene?
Elasticity.
Very good. Stretch and recoil with a little bit of explanation. It stretches when you inhale, but it does not
Overstretch.
Very good. And when you exhale, it will squeeze the air out because we don't want to keep the air in or it will burst. So now I think we can easily understand the alveoli. What are the two cells found in the alveoli? Type 1 and type what, Yasin?
Type 2.
Type 2. What is a single function for type 1?
Gas exchange.
Gas exchange. They're very thin and they're porous and they allow diffusion of gases and they're very nice and sweet. Type 2, what is their only function, Mariam? They secrete what?
Pulmonary surfactant.
Yes, it's a fluid that does what?
Prevent the alveoli from collapsing.
Okay, sticking together reduces surface tension. Please memorize the keywords. Reduces cohesion, prevent them from collapsing, prevents the walls from sticking together. The external walls, now it's called adhesion, allows the gases to dissolve. It reduces friction, etc., etc. Now, this picture, you will see it in paper 1, and they will ask you a very tricky question. How many layers or cell membranes does the oxygen need to pass in order to reach the inside of the red blood cell? This question is here. Where is this question? I want to show it to you. It's very common. Here, I gave you the answer. Look here. In the lungs, oxygen and carbon dioxide pass through cell surface membranes by diffusion. Which row is correct? The number of cell surface membranes diffused through by oxygen from the air and carbon dioxide. Now, this question, you will not be able to understand it except when you imagine or remember this picture. They are asking you how many cell membranes do the oxygen need to pass or cross in order to reach the red blood cell? Can you count, Yasin? The oxygen is here. How many cell membranes does it need to cross?
3.
Why 3? This is one cell membrane because all of these are made up of one endothelial layer, one layer of cells. This is a cell here, and this is a cell, the wall of the capillary. And you have here another cell. So this is one cell membrane, and another cell membrane, and a third cell membrane, and a fourth cell membrane, and then it will enter inside these red blood cell. This is a fifth cell membrane.
Where's the fourth one?
Here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Okay.
And then it will stay inside. Okay? Very annoying question, in my opinion. Very annoying question. Okay, Serene, can you count the number of cell membranes that the carbon dioxide will have to cross? The carbon dioxide came here from the capillary or from the red blood cell. How many cell membranes at least?
5.
Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4. If it is coming from the outside of the red blood cell, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now let's look at this question. Oxygen from the air. From the air, how many cell membranes does it have to cross? How many did we count in order to reach the red blood cell?
5.
5.
Okay, we said 5. If you forgot or you're confused, we said 5. Oxygen is here. So this is the first membrane, 2, 3, 4, 5. So oxygen, definitely 5. Now, look at this question. The answer is D, by the way. Why carbon dioxide to the air? Why is it 4 or 5? Why 4 or 5? Look at C or D. C or D are very confusing because they're very close. 5 each time for oxygen, but carbon dioxide, once it's 4 only, and once it's 4 or 5. And the answer is D. Can you explain why carbon dioxide can cross through 4 or 5 cell membranes?
Because the carbon dioxide can be present in the blood and can be bonded with the hemoglobin.
Perfect. Perfect. Carbon dioxide can either just dissolve in the plasma or it can be in the red blood cell, whether in the cytoplasm, also bound to the hemoglobin or dissociated. We took this in the previous lesson, the one that you should be studying at the moment. So the carbon dioxide, if it is in the plasma, it will have to cross 4 cell membranes, 1, 2, 3, 4 only. If the carbon dioxide is in the red blood cell, it will cross 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That is why the answer is D. Now, in my opinion, this question is very tricky. Okay, so we'll go back to these questions later, but let's finish. Now, sometimes they will ask you for the features or the adaptations of the alveoli. Very easy also question. The alveoli. We have millions of alveoli in a healthy lung, and this increases what? Quickly. So much alveoli. We have around 480 to 500 million alveoli. This increases surface area for gas exchange. I don't think anything is hard about that. We have very thin walls. The alveoli is surrounded by a single layer of squamous epithelium for faster diffusion or a shorter diffusion distance. I don't think anything is hard about that. We mentioned this. We have many capillaries. We said it. Why do we have a dense network of capillaries? What? Say it. To maintain a
Maintain a concentration.
concentration difference so that oxygen and carbon dioxide diffuse and there is a greater difference in concentration and they diffuse quickly. Also, many capillaries, also anything in number provides a large surface area. And we did talk about the elastic fibers to provide elasticity, to stretch, to recoil, so that they don't collapse, so that they don't burst. And they have the type 2 pneumocytes that produce what? Surfactant. And now I think we know their function. Reduce surface tension, reduce cohesion, prevent them from collapsing, prevent them from sticking. So the alveoli are very adapted for gas exchange.
So I have a
Any
question.
questions? Yes.
Are the two types of alveoli separate or joined together?
No, they are not joined together. They are next to each other. Let's look at the picture. They're not joined. They're two separate cells. They're just close to each other. They make the wall of the alveoli. But mainly it's the type 1 pneumocyte that makes the wall of the alveoli, and the type 2 are there to produce the surfactant. They're not one cell. They're two separate cells.
But they're
Okay?
joined together.
No, they're not joined together. They're next to each other. No cells are fused together. They're next to each other.
Okay.
Okay, now we will leave the questions, the multiple choice questions till the end, because now we are done with the structures. There's so many questions we'll solve together. Okay, but the questions are easy. I want us to look at the histology pictures, and then we will talk about one of the diseases, and then we can continue on Monday. Now, or I can finish today, it's not a lot. Let's look at the pictures quickly, the histology pictures. I think this is very obvious. This is cartilage. Again, be familiar with the pictures. No blood vessels, glassy appearance. Now, this is so easy. What is this? Don't look at the... You can easily identify ciliated epithelium using the cilia. Now here, what is this? What are these? Can you identify this cell?
Goblet cell.
Yes, these are the goblet cells. And these are the ciliated epithelium, very obvious. Again, so many pictures in order to be able to identify them. This is squamous epithelium. It's not ciliated because you don't see cilia. Okay, what are these? These cells with a central nucleus, that's it, and no other structures. Spindle-shaped cells. These are smooth muscles. Get used to it, okay? These are capillaries. Now, this, when you have an incomplete C-shaped ring, it's a trachea or a bronchiole or bronchi. We have cartilage in trachea that is in the form of an incomplete C-shaped rings. In This is a what? Very obvious. What's this? You have an incomplete C-shaped cartilage here. This is the trachea, okay? Now, bronchi and bronchioles are very different to differentiate. When you see something that looks like a flower, then this is a bronchi or a bronchiole. How can you differentiate? Bronchi, they have cartilage, but bronchioles, they don't have cartilage. And in the bronchi, the cartilage is not in the form of a complete C-shaped ring, one continuous ring with only one incomplete section here at the end. Bronchi, they have separate cartilage loops or hoops. Again, when you see something that looks like a flower, it's a bronchi or a bronchiole. This is a bronchiole because I do not see cartilage. And you have many alveoli here. These air spaces are the alveoli. Bronchioles have no cartilage and no goblet cells. Don't forget that. Okay, we will go back to the questions later. What is this picture of? What are these air spaces? When you see lots of air spaces like these surrounded by capillaries.
Alveoli.
Alveoli, okay? Now, you will see a picture in paper 2 showing you a picture exactly like this and telling you that this is healthy alveoli and this is the alveoli from a person with chronic obstructive pulmonary disease. He has a condition. Now, what is the difference? What can you see the differences here in a healthy and the sick? Which has more alveoli?
The healthy.
The healthy. You have more alveoli and they're actually smaller. And the person that has any sort of sickness has less alveoli, less capillaries, and they have larger alveoli. They're larger spaces. Now, which will have a smaller surface area to volume ratio? The healthy or the sick?
The sick.
Yes, you have smaller surface area. Smaller surface area. When you have many small alveoli, this will increase the surface area. So when you have a healthy person that does not smoke, he does not have chronic obstructive diseases, he does not have lung cancer, he will have many healthy alveoli that are small. And this will increase the surface area. So a person that is healthy will have a large surface area to volume ratio. And of course, this will make gas exchange very efficient and his breathing will be very efficient. When you're sick and you have less alveoli, they will be bigger. You know why they're bigger? Because air is trapped, because they do not recoil, because the elastic fibers do not squeeze the air out. So here I have trapped air. That is why they are larger air spaces. This air needs to go out so that I can exchange it with new air. But this doesn't happen. That's why they look bigger. And this will decrease the surface area and reduce ventilation and reduce gas exchange, and that person will not be able to breathe properly, etc., etc. Now let's talk about the diseases. Okay, now the disease part, the second part of the lesson is very easy because they're all the same. They all give you the same signs and symptoms. Okay, now I'm going to get my whiteboard and I'm going to discuss the diseases of chronic obstructive pulmonary diseases. Now, what is the chronic obstructive pulmonary disease? This is not a particular disease. This is a group of diseases that have the same signs and symptoms. They include lung cancer, smoking is considered a disease, emphysema, chronic bronchitis, cystic fibrosis. These diseases, maybe the cause of every disease is different, but they all have the same signs and symptoms. When you have any problems with your respiratory system, you will suffer from the same things. You will not be able to breathe properly. You will cough excessively. You will produce lots of mucus. You will have emphysema, difficulty in breathing. You will have recurrent infections. You will have burst alveoli, etc., etc., etc. Okay, now let's start with the first disease, cystic fibrosis. Cystic fibrosis, first, you need to know that it is a genetic disease. People are born with it. There is no definite treatment for the cystic fibrosis. And it is the result of a recessive allele, in case you are interested to know. Now, in cystic fibrosis, what happens? The mucus that is produced is very thick and very sticky. And the cilia cannot sweep it away. When the mucus is very thick and very sticky, what do you see here? What happens to the mucus? The mucus will what? Will it be easily removed or not removed?
Accumulate.
Exactly, it will accumulate. Now, when it accumulates, it will cause lots of problems because your bronchioles are very narrow. When it accumulates, it will cause two problems. Number one, it will block your bronchioles, obstructing the airways, affecting breathing and gas exchange. And number two, mucus is full of what?
Bacteria and dust particles.
Very good. So it will cause recurrent infection. And from there, the problem will arise. Okay? Here you have a nice bronchiole that is healthy and it is clear. I can breathe. There is no obstruction of air. But here I have cystic fibrosis, a genetic disease caused by a recessive allele that will result in the production, again, of very thick, sticky mucus that the cilia cannot remove. So the mucus will accumulate. And from here comes all the problems. It will accumulate, causing difficulty in gas exchange. It will block the airways and it will cause infection. Okay? Now, why did I show you this picture? Because when the mucus accumulates, mucus contains lots of bacteria, like Mariam said. Mucus, now look at the sequence of events because you will write this answer in all the other diseases. They all have the same consequences. That's why all of them are grouped under chronic obstructive pulmonary diseases. If you pay attention to the term chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, chronic means what? Does it go away or it always stays?
Always stays.
Yes, it's not a sudden disease. It comes slowly and it remains for a long time. Obstructive. Why did they call it obstructive? Because what does it obstruct?
The airways.
Very good. That's why they called it obstructive. Pulmonary. Pulmonary in biology means what?
Lungs.
Lungs. And diseases, because it's a collection of diseases that all cause obstruction. And they all cause obstruction because of the mucus. Now let's go back to the mucus. And what's the relation between mucus and this picture? Mucus always causes inflammation. Now we took immunity and we said inflammation means an increase in the blood flow. An increase in the blood flow means an increase in the white blood cells, and the white blood cells and inflammation and infection will attract the white blood cells. And what's the first line of defense? Which white blood cells will come? The phagocytes or the lymphocytes?
Phagocytes.
Very good, the phagocytes. The phagocytes, the neutrophils and the macrophages that patrol the tissues, that walk around looking for trouble. Okay, now these phagocytes, they want to reach the site of infection. They cannot reach the site of infection, so they produce enzymes called elastase enzymes. Now from the name, those elastase enzymes, what do they digest?
Elastic
What do you think?
fibers.
Excellent. These elastase enzymes are produced by the phagocytes. They have good intentions. They want to reach the site of infection because they want to kill the bacteria. But when they produce the elastase enzyme, they produce this enzyme to create a pathway in order to reach the bacteria. They have good intentions, but the problem is that the elastase enzyme will break down the elastic fibers, just like Mariam said. And when the elastic fibers are broken down, how does this affect the alveoli?
It affects its elasticity, therefore it cannot stretch and recoil.
Exactly. This is perfect. What you said is just perfect. There will be no elasticity. The alveoli will not be like the healthy alveoli that we know. No stretching, no recoiling. And the most important part is the recoiling part, because air will be inhaled in, it will be inhaled and it will overstretch. And we cannot squeeze out the air. There is no contraction of elastic fibers because they're not there. They have been broken down. And the air will become trapped the alveoli will overstretch and it will burst. Now, when it bursts, the alveoli will decrease in number. The capillaries will also decrease in number, so less alveoli, less capillaries, less surface area to volume ratio, less oxygenation, less gas exchange. Look at the sequence of events. Less breathing, less ventilation, difficulty in breathing. And the difficulty in breathing, Yassine, you will answer this question because you should have taken it in human biology. Difficulty in breathing when you cannot breathe. What is this called? It starts with an E. Yassine?
Emphysema? I don't
Correct.
know how.
Emphysema.
Yeah. Emphysema, yes.
Yes, correct. Emphysema means difficulty in breathing because there is no gas exchange. Because the alveoli, they have now broken down elastic fibers. They cannot stretch and recoil. Okay? This is really easy. You know why? Because believe me, if you understand it, just go start answering questions. You don't need to memorize anything. It's logic. It's common sense. I'll repeat it again in case you missed something. So what are we talking about? We're talking about a disease in which there is lots of mucus. And the lots of mucus is the result of most of the diseases of the respiratory system. Lung cancer causes lots of mucus because of the tar. Smoking causes irritation of goblet cells and they produce lots of mucus. Cystic fibrosis produces lots of mucus. That's why they're all the same thing. Maybe the cause is different, but the symptoms are the same. The mucus will accumulate. The mucus contains lots of bacteria. It will cause infection. It will cause inflammation. What does this attract, Serene?
Phagocytes.
Very good. Phagocytes. These phagocytes, they want to reach the site of infection. They can't reach. Then what do they produce? They want to create a pathway. What do they produce? They will produce an enzyme that will help it reach the alveoli. What's the name of this enzyme?
Elastase enzyme.
Excellent. And from the name, these enzymes, they break down the
Elastic fibers.
very good. This will affect the alveoli. They have good intentions, but the alveoli will not be elastic. You will not be able to stretch. You will not be able to recoil. You will not be able to breathe. It will give you poor oxygenation, poor ventilation, poor gas exchange, and you will go, and this is emphysema. Okay? Nice? Any questions?
No.
Okay, I will promise. I will say one last thing and then I'll let you go because the rest is all the same. What is this one last thing? Now you have here your trachea and your lungs. These are your lungs. Don't know. Okay, and you have your heart here. Now the lungs and the heart, they work together. They are very related. When you have poor oxygenation at the lungs, how does this affect your heart?
The
Will
heart
your heart,
pumps with
huh?
less strength because it doesn't have oxygen to produce.
Hello? Mariam, you said with less strength or with more force. There is less oxygenation. So will this increase the heart rate or decrease the heart rate? Remember when we studied altitudes and you suddenly go up the mountain and there is less oxygen? So how does this affect the heart rate and the breathing rate?
It decreases the heart and breathing rate.
No, Mariam, it increases the heart and breathing rate. The heart will start to pump faster and more blood because it wants to compensate for this lack of oxygen. It will start pumping more blood to the lungs because it's as if it's telling the lungs, give me oxygen, give me oxygen. Maybe what you're saying is not incorrect, but this is a long-term effect if the condition lasts. You are telling me that there will be no oxygen and the heart will not have enough energy to pump, yes?
Yes.
Here we are in the final stages of the cardiac arrest. The heart will stop. It doesn't have energy. So you jumped. Let's look at the very beginning. There is a decrease in the oxygen supply. A small decrease in the oxygen supply. We still did not reach to this severe state because here we are talking about the beginnings of a cardiac arrest. There is a decrease in the oxygen supply. You have infection.
So the
So
heart
how will you, huh?
The heart rate will increase to provide more hemoglobin to provide the same amount of oxygen as before.
Okay, you're correct. The heart rate will increase. Okay, why is that? Because the heart will try to pump more blood to the lungs to make up for the decrease in oxygen. Now, which part of the heart exactly will pump blood to the lungs? The right side of the heart or the left side of the heart?
The right side of the heart.
The right side of the heart. Now, let's take it step by step. When there is a decrease in oxygenation, when the lungs are affected, and also when you smoke, the nicotine in the cigarettes will cause vasoconstriction, will cause constriction in the blood vessels. So there is a decrease in the blood supply in the lungs, there is a decrease in the oxygenation, and the blood vessels are constricted. This will increase blood pressure. The blood pressure will rise, especially in the pulmonary circulation. So this is going to cause something called pulmonary hypertension. I have less oxygenation, I have increase in blood pressure, I have an increase in blood pressure inside the lungs. This is called pulmonary hypertension. Now, the heart will respond by an increase in the heart rate. The heart will try to pump more blood to the lungs in order to provide more oxygen. Now, this will be done by the right side of the heart. With time, the right side of the heart will enlarge and will become weaker. And this is a dangerous situation. It is the beginning of a cardiac arrest or a heart attack. And this is called the right ventricle hypertrophy. Right ventricle, I think it's obvious. Hypertrophy means increase in size, enlargement. Okay, maybe I jumped again. We are talking about chronic obstructive pulmonary diseases. They all have the same signs and symptoms because they all lead to an increase in mucus. Too much mucus will cause infection, will cause inflammation, will cause phagocytes, will cause the release of elastase enzyme and destroying of the elastic fibers and poor oxygenation. Is this part clear?
Yes.
Anyone has any questions? Okay. Now, poor oxygenation will make the heart pump faster, and this will increase blood pressure. When the heart pumps harder and faster to compensate for the lack of oxygen, the right side of the heart will become bigger. It will be strained. You will put strain on the right side of the heart, and this can cause something called pulmonary hypertension and right ventricle hypertrophy. Who did not understand this part? Do I repeat it? I will. I'll repeat it and then I'll let you go. And then we can continue the diseases later. Let me open a whiteboard. Yes, here. Okay. Okay. One by one. We have here your lungs, your trachea, your bronchi, and your lungs. Now you have your heart here. You have lung cancer, God forbid, you're a smoker, you have cystic fibrosis, you have a problem, one of the chronic obstructive pulmonary diseases that will result in poor oxygenation. You have a decrease in the oxygen supply. Now, your heart will respond to a decrease in the oxygen supply by increase in the heart rate. The heart will beat faster and with more force, trying to provide more blood to the lungs to compensate for the decrease in oxygen. Do you all agree and understand this point?
Yes.
Okay, Serene, Yassine, you're all with me? Because you have to understand the sequence of events. Serene, you have any questions?
No.
Okay, so you have poor oxygenation, your alveoli are affected for any reason. So the heart will respond by pumping harder and pumping faster in order to try to provide more blood to the lungs to compensate for the lack of oxygen. Now, this is going to increase blood pressure. And this is going to specifically increase the pressure inside the lungs. An increase in the pressure inside the lungs is called pulmonary Hypertension. Pulmonary means lungs. Hypertension means an increase in blood pressure. The right side of the heart, the side of the heart that is pumping the deoxygenated blood to the lungs, will be the side of the heart that is most affected, because it will try to pump lots of blood to the lungs to make it oxygenate the blood, to make up for the decrease in oxygen. This is going to put a lot of strain on the right side of the heart. With time, the right side of the heart will enlarge. It will become bigger and it will become weaker. And this is the first sign or the first step. If this is ignored and not treated, it will lead to chronic heart disease or a stroke, a heart attack. Okay? Do you understand this part?
Yes.
Okay. Also, a decrease in oxygen has other consequences. One of them, Maryam said it. When there is a decrease in oxygen, how does this affect the pH of the blood?
It's lowered.
Okay, it's lowered. Maryam said it. She said that the heart will not have enough what?
Energy.
Okay, you jumped. There is a decrease in energy, correct. Now, a decrease in oxygen is going to reduce which type of respiration, aerobic or anaerobic?
Aerobic respiration.
Very good. A decrease in aerobic respiration and an increase in anaerobic respiration. If you remember, anaerobic respiration produces lactic acid as a waste product, and this is going to affect the pH of the blood. It will make the blood acidic. And this is going to denature the enzymes in the heart. And this can also lead to a heart attack or a stroke, because the heart attack can be the result of so many reasons. Also, the situation can be very severe to the extent that the heart has no energy, to the extent that the heart will not stop pumping. It will stop pumping, and all this can lead to a stroke. So a heart attack or a stroke can be the result of so many reasons. Either the right side of the heart enlarged because of the so much strain and the heart can no longer pump, or there is no energy, or there was a buildup of acidity and the enzymes denatured. All of them will lead to the same consequence, which is a heart attack. Okay, is it hard? Did what I say today hard? Hello?
No.
Okay, can you give me a chance to say it one last time so it sticks? I know that you are tired. Let's say it again, one last time. Serene, do you have any questions? Hello?
No.
Serene,
Yes.
you have questions?
No.
Okay, I'll say it one last time, promise, and then I'll let you go. We are going to talk about the respiratory diseases. We all of them have the same sequence of events. You have here an infection or a cancer, or you're a smoker, whatever. They all affect the accumulation of mucus. The goblet cells will become irritated and they will produce lots of mucus. When the mucus accumulate, they will block the airways, you will not breathe properly, and they will cause lots of infection. Now, this is going to attract the phagocytes. Now, can you help me continue? Because I forgot. Yassine, when the phagocytes are attracted to the site of infection or inflammation, what do the phagocytes do and why? They want to reach, but they cannot reach. They want to create a pathway to reach the site of infection. So what enzyme do they produce? Who will remind Yassine?
Elastase enzyme.
Correct. Wake up with me. Elastase, and this is the most important part of the lesson. The elastase enzyme, let me mark it. I have a marker here. Okay? This elastase enzyme, serine, from the name, what does it break down?
Elastic fibers.
Very good. I have broken down elastic fibers. They're damaged. When they are damaged, how does this affect the alveoli? Loss of what?
Elasticity.
Good girl. And then how does this further affect the whatever? loss of elasticity, then the alveoli will not be able to I will not leave you
Stretch.
until this is done. No what? No stretch and no
Recoil.
good. Then the alveoli will, what's the key words? When they don't recoil and the air is trapped, they will what?
First.
Good girl. Wake up with me. It's very nice and interesting. Don't make me feel that you're bored. When they burst, Yassine, how are the number affected?
Decrease.
Yes, less alveoli. And then how is the surface area affected?
Also
Decrease.
decrease.
Good, less surface area to volume ratio. How will this affect the gas exchange?
Decrease.
Decrease. Very nice. Now from there, I have many consequences. When I have a decrease in oxygen, promise I'll let you go, promise, but just give me a chance. There is less oxygen. Now, less oxygen has many consequences. Number one, there is a decrease in aerobic respiration and increase in anaerobic respiration. This is something that we took last year, by the way, and this is going to increase the concentration of lactic acid, making the blood acidic, denaturing the enzymes. This is last year material. Any questions over this point?
No.
Okay. The second consequence is that, like Mariam said, when there is a decrease in aerobic respiration, there is a decrease in energy. The heart will not be able to even pump, and this is going to cause cardiac arrest. Again, I think this is last year. We took it last year. Any question in point number 2? Any
No.
questions? No. Now, point number 3 is the new one. It's the new consequence. When there is a decrease in oxygen, how will this affect the blood pressure? Serene. When I have here lungs that are not working properly, how will the heart respond? Increase in blood pressure and heart rate or decrease?
Increase.
Good girl. So there's an increase in blood pressure. I will pump harder because I want more oxygen. I will tell the lungs, give me oxygen, even though the lungs cannot give me, but I will try to insist. I want oxygen. I want oxygen. More blood pressure. We have 2 circulations, systemic circulation and pulmonary circulation. The blood pressure in general will increase, but which circulation will be really affected? The pulmonary circulation or the systemic?
Pulmonary.
Yes, because the right side of the heart will pump really hard in order to try to provide the lungs with more blood. We know that the right side of the heart pumps blood to the lungs, but gently, because we don't want to destroy the delicate alveoli in the lungs, because the lungs are right above the heart and the distance is very short. Remember, this is coming up in your exam. But when the right side of the heart pumps really strong, this is not good, because this is going to increase the pressure inside the lungs. This is going to increase the pulmonary pressure. And this will also further damage the delicate alveoli. And the right side of the heart with time will enlarge and will become weaker, okay, until it finally contributes to a stroke. This is called right ventricular hypertrophy. By the way, I explained a little bit more to what is present in your notes because maybe I just went in depth, but it is present, like it is, you will see it in the mark scheme. That part of an increase in the blood pressure in the lungs and an increase in the size of the right side of the heart. I want you to understand why the right size, because the heart is pumping blood to the lungs. And which side of the heart is pumping blood to the lungs? The right side of the heart. There is a general increase in blood pressure. But when the systemic blood pressure increases a little bit, it will not cause a problem. But when the pulmonary blood pressure increases, it will cause a problem because it will damage the alveoli in the lungs and the right side of the heart will become weak. And this can lead to a heart stroke. Clear? Did what we say today understood? Clear? Any questions?
No.
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 No questions. Okay. Now, the remaining part of the lesson more or less rotates around the same thing. We will talk about different diseases and we will talk about smoking, and you will find it very easy because we took it in the O level and then it has been removed in the new syllabus. Okay? So you will find it will take us 10 minutes. We'll just discuss the diseases. The cause of every disease is different, but the results are the same. Exactly what we said now, we will repeat it in every disease. All of them have the same sequence of events: mucus, infection, inflammation, phagocytes, elastase enzyme, elastic fibers destroyed, alveoli cannot stretch and recoil, you cannot breathe, the heart, the blood pressure will increase, the heart will become weaker, you can suffer from a heart attack, etc. It's all the same thing. So that's why I insisted that you understand it well, because you will repeat the same answer in all the questions. Okay. Any questions before I go?
No.
Fine, like you're doing. If you have any questions while you're solving your classified, send me and I'll help you. Bye-bye.
Bye.